Millionaire catches building superintendent's son studying in the parking garage. What she does. Eleanor Sterling was furious when she went down to the parking garage of the Manhattan office tower she managed. Someone had left the lights on overnight for the third consecutive day, needlessly increasing the energy bill. At 58, she didn't tolerate waste in her business. That's when she saw the figure hunched over books spread across the cold concrete floor. A young man of about 19 was completely focused, lit only by a small headlamp. The boy didn't even notice her arrival, so absorbed was he in his studies. "What are you doing here?" Eleanor asked in a firm voice, startling the young man and causing him to drop some papers. "Sorry, ma'am," he replied quickly, trying to gather his materials. "I'll leave right now. I won't bother anyone anymore." Eleanor recognized his face. It was Caleb, son of Mr. Arthur, the building superintendent, but she had never really noticed the boy before. Now, seeing the law books spread across the floor and the carefully handwritten notes, she felt a strange curiosity. "Why are you studying here instead of at home?" she insisted, crossing her arms. Caleb hesitated for a moment, clearly embarrassed. "It's just that there's no space at home, Miss Eleanor. There are 5 of us in a small apartment up there. My younger siblings are really noisy, and my dad comes home tired from work. Down here it's quieter." "And the books? Where did you get the money to buy all this?" Eleanor asked, picking up one of the volumes. It was a used copy, but well preserved. "I work at a pizza parlor at night after I help my dad here in the building," Caleb replied, more relaxed now. "I save up tips from 2 or 3 months and I can buy a used book. Sometimes I trade with other students too." Eleanor felt something strange in her chest, a mix of admiration and discomfort she couldn't explain. That young man was putting in more effort than most of the rich kids she knew. "And why law?" she asked. Caleb's eyes lit up. "I want to be a lawyer, ma'am. A lawyer for free for people like us who can't afford one. There's so much injustice out there that could be solved if everyone knew their rights." Eleanor was silent for a few seconds. There was something in that young man's sincerity that touched her in a way she hadn't expected. "All right," she said finally. "You can keep studying here, but no mess." Caleb smiled so genuinely that Eleanor felt strange. "Thank you so much, Miss Eleanor. You have no idea how much this means to me." She went back up to the apartment without saying another word, but couldn't get the image of the young man out of her head. That night she had trouble sleeping. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to hit the like button and especially subscribe to the channel. That really helps us beginners. Now continuing. In the following days, Eleanor found herself going down to the parking garage at the same time. She told herself it was to check that everything was in order, but the truth was she was curious to learn more about Caleb's studies. The young man had an impressive routine. He arrived at 11 p.m. after finishing his shift at the pizza parlor and studied until 4 a.m. He slept only 3 hours before waking up to help his father clean the building. "Caleb," she called out one of those nights, "aren't you overdoing it? Your body needs rest." "I'm fine, Miss Eleanor," he replied, but Eleanor noticed the deep, dark circles under his eyes and his trembling hands. "The LSAT entrance exam is in 6 months. I can't waste time." "And what if you get sick?" she insisted. "I won't," Caleb said with a determination that impressed Eleanor. "My mother always said that you only achieve what you truly want when you're willing to sacrifice for it." "Your mother?" Eleanor asked. "Where is she?" Caleb's face darkened for a moment. She left us when I was 15, he said softly. "A quick illness. Before she passed, she made me promise I would study, that I would be someone in life." Eleanor felt a pang in her heart. She knew all too well what it was like to lose someone important too soon. "I'm so sorry," she said sincerely. "That's why I can't give up," Caleb continued. "It's the only way to honor the promise I made to her." That conversation deeply affected Eleanor. That night she stood on the balcony of her apartment thinking about her own life. At 58, she was one of the most successful businesswomen in the city, but she felt empty. She had no children, her marriage had ended 10 years ago, and her days consisted of business meetings and empty social engagements. Caleb, on the other hand, with all his struggles, had a clear purpose and a determination she had lost long ago. The following week, Eleanor decided to act. She sought out Mr. Arthur to talk about his son. "Mr. Arthur, Caleb is a very dedicated young man," she began. "Oh yes, Mrs. Eleanor," the 52-year-old man replied with visible pride. "Ever since he was little, he's been like that, always chasing his dreams. I was thinking of offering him an internship at my company, with a salary, of course. It could help with his studies." Mr. Arthur was visibly moved. "You are very kind. I'll talk to him, but I doubt he'll accept." "Why wouldn't he accept?" Eleanor asked, surprised. "Caleb is as stubborn as his mother," Mr. Arthur smiled. "He's got it in his head that he needs to achieve everything on his own, through his own effort. I've offered help many times, and he always refuses." Eleanor was intrigued. She was used to having all her offers accepted immediately. A refusal would be new. That night, she got straight to the point with Caleb. "I want to offer you an internship at my company, part-time so you can keep studying." Caleb stopped writing and looked at her with an expression hard to decipher. "I really appreciate the offer, Mrs. Eleanor. Truly, but I can't accept." "Why not?" Eleanor asked, not hiding her irritation. "Because I want to earn my place on my own merit," Caleb replied calmly. "If I accept help now, how would I know if I truly deserve where I end up?" "That's silly pride," Eleanor countered. "Everyone needs help at some point." "Maybe it is pride," Caleb admitted. "But it's what drives me. I want to look in the mirror and know that every step I took was on my own 2 feet. Eleanor left there frustrated and, strangely, admiring him at the same time. Caleb had solid principles, something rare to see these days. But the young man's stubbornness also awakened a determination in her that she hadn't felt in years. If he wouldn't accept direct help, she would find other ways. She started leaving snacks in the parking garage of the Manhattan office tower, pretending she had forgotten them. Caleb never touched them. She tried forgetting money near his books. Caleb always brought the money back to her the next day. "Caleb, you're being ridiculous," Eleanor said on one of those occasions. "It's just a snack." "Mrs. Eleanor, I really appreciate your concern, but I can't accept anything I haven't earned," he replied patiently. "You'd understand if you knew where I come from." "Then tell me where you come from," Eleanor challenged. Caleb hesitated for a moment, then began to speak. "My mother was a housekeeper. She worked in a home on the Upper East Side. I sometimes went with her when I was on school break. Her employer always left leftover food, old clothes, broken toys. She said it was help, but my mother knew it was just her way of feeling better about herself." Eleanor felt a discomfort growing inside her. "One day," Caleb continued, "I heard the woman talking to her friends about how generous she was with the poor. She talked about us as if we were pets, little animals she took care of. My mother cried that day. She said the humiliation hurt more than the need." Eleanor swallowed hard. She recognized that kind of charity. "That's why I promised myself I would never depend on anyone's pity," Caleb finished. "I'd rather earn things my own way, even if it's harder." That night, Eleanor stayed up late reflecting on Caleb's words. Was she also treating people like charity projects? Was her generosity just a way to feel better about her own empty life? The question bothered her so much that she decided to do something different. Instead of trying to help Caleb directly, she started observing him more closely, trying to truly understand who he was. She discovered that, besides studying and working, Caleb gave free tutoring sessions to kids from the low-income neighborhood on Sundays, that he saved money from his lunch to buy school supplies for his younger siblings, that he had found a lost wallet with $200 on the street and turned it in at the police station without taking a single cent. The more she got to know Caleb, the more Eleanor questioned her own life. When was the last time she had done something genuinely good, expecting nothing in return? When was the last time she had felt truly useful? Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The first big obstacle came 3 months later. Eleanor arrived at the parking garage and found Caleb with a swollen face and a cut on his lip. "What happened?" she asked, alarmed. It was nothing. Caleb tried to brush it off, but Eleanor wasn't willing to accept evasions. Caleb, tell me what happened. Some guys from my street didn't like me getting above myself, he admitted. They said the building superintendent's son doesn't become a doctor, that I was wasting my time. They beat you? Eleanor asked indignantly. It was just an argument that got out of hand, Caleb downplayed it. But it didn't shake me, Ma'am Eleanor. I know who I am and where I want to go. Eleanor felt a rage she hadn't experienced in a long time. How could people try to destroy someone's dream out of pure envy? Are you going to file a report? She asked. No, Caleb answered firmly. I don't want trouble. I just want to focus on my studies. Eleanor admired the young man's maturity, but at the same time she was worried. If the problems continued, Caleb might give up on his studies. Without him knowing, she started doing some discreet investigating. She found out that the attackers were sons of local shopkeepers who saw Caleb as a threat. They spread rumors that he was acting like he was better than everyone else, just because he studied. Eleanor used her connections to resolve the situation indirectly. She spoke with some local suppliers who made a point of mentioning to the shopkeepers how impressive it was to have such a dedicated young man in the low-income neighborhood. Soon, the tone of the rumors changed, and Caleb began to be seen as a positive example. But the real crisis came from where Eleanor least expected it. On a Thursday, she went down to the parking garage and didn't find Caleb. On Friday, he wasn't there either. On Saturday, worried, she went to look for Mr. Arthur. Mr. Arthur, where's Caleb? It's been 3 days since I've seen him studying. The building superintendent seemed embarrassed. Well, something happened, Ma'am Eleanor. What happened? Eleanor insisted. Chloe's mother, the girl he tutors in math, offered him a job at a hardware and construction store. The pay is good, but it's full-time. Eleanor felt her stomach drop. And did he accept? He hasn't decided yet, Mr. Arthur replied. But he's really tempted. He says he can make money now and try the LSAT entrance exam next year, when he's more financially prepared. Eleanor knew this was a trap. If Caleb started working full-time, he would hardly ever go back to his studies. The immediate need would always win over the long-term dream. She needed to do something, but she didn't know what. Caleb had already made it clear he wouldn't accept direct help. That was when she had an idea. She sought out the owner of the hardware and construction store and made a proposal. She would buy products from the store regularly, guaranteeing a good monthly revenue, in exchange for the woman keeping the job open for Caleb, but only part-time so he could keep studying. The store owner, Mrs. Martha, accepted immediately. It was a good deal for her. When Caleb showed up at the parking garage the following Monday, Eleanor pretended to be surprised. I thought you were going to work at the store, she casually remarked. Mrs. Martha said she only had a part-time opening, Caleb replied, clearly relieved. It's not ideal, but at least I can keep studying. Eleanor hid her smile. It was the first time in a long while that she had felt truly useful, but Caleb's challenges were far from over. 2 weeks later, Eleanor arrived at the parking garage and found Caleb crying over his books. It was the first time she had seen him cry. Caleb, what's wrong? She asked, sitting down on the floor beside him. I got my mock exam score, he said between sobs. It didn't go well. It's still not enough to get into the program I want. Eleanor looked at the sheet with the results. The score wasn't bad, but it really wasn't enough for law at a competitive public university. How long until the LSAT entrance exam? She asked. 3 months, Caleb replied, wiping his eyes. Maybe I should accept that it's not my time. I can try next year. No, Eleanor said more forcefully than she intended. I'm sorry, but you can't give up now. You've come too far. But Mrs. Eleanor, the numbers don't lie. I need to improve a lot in a short time. Eleanor looked at that young man who had shaken up her life so much in the past months. Caleb had shown her a purpose she had lost long ago. She wasn't going to let him give up now. Caleb, let me make you a proposal, she said calmly. You know I don't accept help, he replied. This isn't help, it's a business deal, Eleanor smiled. I need someone to give motivational talks to my employees, someone who can show them the value of effort and determination. Would you be up for that? Caleb seemed confused. But Mrs. Eleanor, I have no experience with that. You don't need experience. You have something better. Authenticity, Eleanor explained. My employees have seen you studying down here for months. They know your story. A talk from you would be worth more than 10 expensive consultants. Caleb looked thoughtful. And what would be the trade-off? $600 per talk, one a week until the LSAT entrance exam, Eleanor proposed, and you choose the topic and format. Caleb was silent for a long time. Why are you doing this? He finally asked. Eleanor took a deep breath before answering. Because you reminded me what it's like to have a real dream, she said honestly. For years, I've just worked for the sake of working, just made money for the sake of making money. You showed me what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. Caleb looked her in the eye for a moment. All right, he said, but with one condition, which is, half the money will go into a fund I'm going to set up to help other young people in the same situation as me. If I make my dream come true, I want to help others make theirs come true too. Eleanor felt her eyes well up. This 19-year-old boy had more wisdom and generosity than many 60-year-old business owners she knew. Deal, she said, extending her hand. Caleb's talks were a success beyond expectations. He spoke with genuine passion about overcoming obstacles, about the importance of not giving up on your dreams, about how hardships can be turned into strengths. Eleanor's employees left the talks motivated and inspired. The company's productivity increased noticeably. But more importantly than that, Caleb used the money from the talks to hire private tutoring in Portuguese and essay writing, his weakest subjects. In 6 weeks, his mock exam scores improved dramatically. Eleanor found herself rooting for Caleb like she had never rooted for anything in her life. She followed every mock exam, every improvement, every small victory. Then came the second major crisis. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners. Now, continuing. One morning, Eleanor arrived at the building and found an ambulance at the door. Mr. Arthur had fallen ill while cleaning and was being taken to the hospital. Caleb came running from the pizza parlor when he heard the news. At the hospital, the doctors informed them that Mr. Arthur had suffered a heart attack. Nothing too serious, but he would need to stay a few days for observation. What's going to happen? Caleb asked Eleanor in the hospital hallway. Is he going to lose his job if he takes time off? Eleanor saw the desperation in the young man's eyes. Of course not, Caleb. His job is secure, and he'll get all the medical support he needs. But what about the hospital costs? Caleb insisted. Through public social services, it could take a while to get a bed. Leave it to me, Eleanor said. Your father will get the best possible care. Caleb looked at her with a mix of gratitude and despair. Ms. Eleanor, I know you're being generous, but how am I going to pay for all this? You're not paying anything, Eleanor replied firmly. Your father has worked for me for 15 years. It's my duty to take care of him now. Caleb was silent for a moment, clearly struggling internally. I'm going to have to stop studying and work full-time, he finally said. I need to help with the household expenses while my father recovers. Eleanor felt her heart race. This was exactly what she had feared. Caleb, you don't need to do that. I can... No, Ms. Eleanor, Caleb interrupted gently. You've already done too much. I need to take responsibility for my family now. Eleanor saw all the months of Caleb's hard work going down the drain. The LSAT entrance exam was in a month. If he stopped studying now, he would lose everything. That night she stayed awake thinking of a solution. For the first time in many years, something mattered more to her than her own business. Caleb's dream had become, in a way, her dream too. The next morning she had a risky idea. She sought out the building's superintendent, Mr. Harrison Esquier, a lawyer she had known for years. Harrison, I need a favor, she said. Shoot, Eleanor. I need you to offer Caleb a temporary job as your assistant, with flexible hours, so he can keep studying. Eleanor, I don't need an assistant, Harrison replied, confused. Yes, you do, Eleanor insisted. I'm sure you have a lot of accumulated work that a smart young man could help you with, and I guarantee he's very smart. Harrison was suspicious. Eleanor, what's going on? Why all this interest in the building superintendent's son? Eleanor took a deep breath. It was time to be honest. Because that young man reminded me of who I was before I became rich, she admitted. I also came from a humble family, Harrison. I also fought hard to get my first job, my first opportunity. The difference is that I had people who believed in me when I needed it most. Harrison looked at her in surprise. Eleanor rarely spoke about her past. Caleb has talent, he has character, he has determination, she continued. He just needs a chance. If I do nothing, he will give up his studies to work any job. It would be an immense waste. And why don't you offer him a job at your own company? Harrison asked. I tried. He won't accept direct help from me. He thinks it would be a favor, but if the opportunity comes from somewhere else, he might accept it. Harrison was thoughtful for a few minutes. All right, he finally said, but I want to meet the young man first. If he is really as special as you say, I'll give him a chance. Eleanor smiled for the first time in days. The next day, she casually talked to Caleb about Mr. Harrison's offer. One of the residents in the building needs an assistant, she mentioned. Flexible hours for someone who studies. Don't you want to talk to him? Caleb seemed interested but suspicious. What kind of work? Organizing documents, some basic research, Eleanor replied. Mr. Harrison is a lawyer, just like you want to be. It would be good experience. Caleb agreed to talk to Mr. Harrison. The conversation lasted 2 hours. Eleanor, Harrison called her that same day. You were right. This young man is exceptional. He asked questions that many law interns wouldn't know to ask, and he has an impressive hunger to learn. So it will work out, Eleanor asked anxiously. It will more than work out. I don't need an assistant, but this young man made me realize I could use some help from a smart person on a few projects. And you know what impressed me most? What? When I offered the salary, he asked if he could receive part of it in law books instead of money. He said the experience would be payment enough. Eleanor smiled. That was typical of Caleb. With the new job, Caleb managed to keep a balance between studying and helping with household expenses. Mr. Arthur recovered well and went back to work 2 weeks later. With 15 days left until the LSAT entrance exam, Eleanor was more nervous than Caleb himself. She had become so involved in the young man's story that she felt as if she were the one taking the test. Caleb, she said on one of the last study nights in the parking garage, regardless of the result, I want you to know that I am very proud of you. Caleb stopped writing and looked at her. Miss Eleanor, can I say something? Of course. At first I thought you were just another rich person who wanted to feel better about themselves by helping the poor, he said honestly. But over time I realized that's not it. Eleanor felt her face warm. You are a genuinely good person, Caleb continued. And it's not because you have money, it's because you have a heart. You helped me, but in a way that respected my dignity. That's rare. Caleb, Eleanor started, but he interrupted, and I want you to know that regardless of the LSAT result, you have already changed my life. You showed me that genuinely good people exist in the world. That's a gift I will carry forever. Eleanor felt her eyes well up. It had been a long time since she had felt so moved by someone's words. You have changed my life too, Caleb, she admitted. You reminded me of why I started working, why I wanted to have a company. It wasn't just to make money, it was to make a difference. They were silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. You know, Eleanor finally said, no matter what happens, I want to make you an offer. What kind of offer? Caleb asked, curious. I want to create a scholarship program at my firm for young people in your situation, people with talent but no resources, she explained. And I want you to help me coordinate it. You know the struggles better than anyone. Caleb was surprised. Caleb. But, Mrs. Eleanor, I don't even know if I'll pass the LSAT entrance exam. That doesn't matter, Eleanor said sincerely. You have something more valuable than a diploma, life experience and character. Those are the qualities I want in the program. Caleb grew thoughtful. It would be a way to give back everything I've received, he said more to himself. It would be a way to multiply the opportunities, Eleanor corrected. It's not about giving back. It's about continuing the chain of good. The day of the LSAT entrance exam arrived on a cold Sunday morning. Eleanor found herself waking up early, thinking about Caleb. She knew he was getting up at that very moment to prepare. At 7 a.m., her cell phone rang. "Mrs. Eleanor," it was Mr. Arthur's voice. "Mr. Arthur, what's wrong?" Eleanor asked, worried. "Caleb is feeling sick. I think it's nerves. He can't even have breakfast." Eleanor didn't hesitate. "I'll be right over." Arriving at the building superintendent's apartment, Eleanor found Caleb pale, trembling slightly. "Caleb, what's going on?" she asked. "I don't think I can do it," he said quietly. "I studied so much, but now, at the moment, I can't remember anything. What if I don't pass? What if all this effort was for nothing?" Eleanor sat next to him on the small living room sofa. "Caleb, listen to me," she said calmly. "You've already overcome the hardest part." "What do you mean?" he asked, confused. "The hardest part isn't the exam, it's getting here," Eleanor explained. "How many young people in your situation gave up along the way? How many didn't have your determination, your discipline, your willpower?" Caleb listened attentively. "You studied on the cold floor of a parking garage for months. You worked 2 jobs to buy books. You endured taunts, hardships, obstacles that would have made anyone quit," Eleanor continued. "If that doesn't prove you deserve to be in that room taking the exam, I don't know what does." "But what if it's not enough?" Caleb insisted. "If it's not enough this time, it will be next time," Eleanor replied without hesitation. "Because you're not the kind of person who gives up, and you know how I know that?" "How?" "Because you've shown me over the past few months. Every night you came to study in the parking garage after a full day of work, you were proving it. Every time you turned down help to achieve things on your own, you were proving it. You're not someone who gives up, Caleb. You're someone who persists until you succeed." Caleb took a deep breath, and she saw a bit of color return to his face. "You're right," he said more firmly. "No matter the result today, I won't stop. I'll keep fighting until I make it." "Now you sound like the Caleb I know," Eleanor smiled. "Go out there and show them who you are." Eleanor offered him a ride, but Caleb preferred to take the bus. "It's tradition," he said. "I've always taken the bus to the important things in my life." Eleanor spent the entire day anxious. She called a few friends, tried to work, but couldn't concentrate on anything. She could only think about Caleb sitting in that room, answering the questions that would determine his future. At 6 p.m., her cell phone rang. "Mrs. Eleanor?" It was Caleb. "Caleb, how did it go?" she asked nervously. "It was intense," he replied. Eleanor couldn't decipher the tone of his voice. "Do you think you did well?" "I don't know," Caleb admitted. "Some questions were harder than I expected. Others were easier. I'll only know the results in 3 weeks." Eleanor felt an enormous frustration. 3 weeks seemed like an eternity. "The important thing is that you did your best," she said. "I did," Caleb agreed. "And I want to thank you for everything you've done for me. If it weren't for you, I never would have made it this far." "Caleb, you got here because of your own effort," Eleanor countered. "I just made some things easier." "You did much more than that," Caleb said, emotional. "You believed in me when I doubted myself. That's priceless." After hanging up the phone, Eleanor sat on the balcony of her apartment, thinking about how her life had changed in recent months. Caleb had brought a purpose to her days that she hadn't realized was missing. Regardless of the LSAT entrance exam result, she knew that this experience had transformed both of them. The following 3 weeks passed slowly. Eleanor tried to keep a normal routine, but she was clearly anxious. Caleb continued working with Mr. Harrison and went back to studying in the parking garage, now preparing for possible job interviews if the result wasn't positive. "Caleb," Eleanor said one night, "no matter what happens, I want you to know that my offer to coordinate the scholarship program still stands." "I accept," Caleb replied without hesitation. "I've thought a lot about it in recent weeks, and I realize that's what I want to do. I want to help other young people who are going through what I went through." Eleanor smiled. Even without knowing the LSAT result, Caleb was already thinking about how to help others. That was typical of him, On the eve of the result, neither of them could sleep well. Eleanor stayed on the balcony late into the night, looking at the city lights. Caleb spent the night organizing his books in the parking garage, a way to channel his anxiety. The result would come out at 2 p.m. Eleanor cancelled all her appointments for the day. Caleb missed work for the first time since he started with Mr. Harrison. At 1:55 p.m., they were together in Eleanor's apartment with the computer open to the university's page. "Ready?" Eleanor asked. Caleb took a deep breath. "Ready." She clicked to refresh the page. Caleb Bennett's name appeared on the list of those approved in 12th place for the law program. For a moment, neither of them could react. Then Caleb burst into tears. "I made it," he repeated between sobs. "I made it, Miss Eleanor. I made it." Eleanor was also crying. She hugged Caleb tightly, as if he were her own son. "You deserve it," she said emotionally. "You fought for it and you deserve it." Mr. Arthur came running when he heard the news. The impromptu party they threw in Eleanor's apartment was one of the happiest she had ever attended. "Mum," Caleb said, looking at a photo on the wall, "I kept my promise." Eleanor saw the young man she had met studying on the cold floor of the parking garage transform before her eyes. He was still the same determined young man, but now there was a new confidence in his eyes. The confidence of someone who has proven to themselves that they can achieve their dreams. 6 months later, the scholarship program created by Eleanor was running at full steam. Caleb, now a first-year law student, coordinated the selections with a sensitivity that impressed everyone. "How do you know who truly deserves the scholarship?" Eleanor asked in one of the meetings. "It's easy," Caleb replied. "I look for the same spark in the eyes that you saw in me that first day in the parking garage, the spark of someone who has a real dream and is willing to fight for it." By that time, the program had already benefited 15 young people, each with a different story, but all with the same determination that Caleb had shown. Eleanor felt fulfilled, seeing each new beneficiary of the program achieve their victories. It was as if she were multiplying that first thrill she felt when Caleb passed the LSAT entrance exam. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. A year and a half later, Caleb came to Eleanor with an unexpected proposal. "Mrs. Sterling, I want to go into business with you," he said. "What kind of business?" she asked curiously. "I want to create a law firm that works hand in hand with the scholarship program," Caleb explained excitedly. "The firm's lawyers would provide free legal advice to low-income people, and part of the profit would be reinvested in the scholarship program." Eleanor was impressed by the maturity of the proposal. "But Caleb, you're still in your second year of law school." "I know," Caleb admitted, "but I want to start structuring it now. By the time I graduate, I want everything to be up and running, and I want you to be my partner." "Why me?" Eleanor asked. "Because you were the one who taught me that success only makes sense when it's shared," Caleb replied, "and because I trust you more than I've ever trusted anyone." Eleanor felt her eyes well up again. That young man she had met studying on the floor of the parking garage was now proposing a business partnership that could change the lives of hundreds of people. "I accept," she said without hesitation. "Even without knowing the details?" Caleb asked, surprised. "Caleb, I learned something important from you," Eleanor explained. "Sometimes the best investment we can make is to bet on people of integrity with genuine dreams. Everything else is just details." 5 years later, Bennett and Sterling Social Advocacy Law was among the most respected firms in the city. Caleb had graduated with honors, and Eleanor had found a purpose for her life that went far beyond profit. The scholarship program had already benefited more than 200 young people. Many of them now worked at the firm itself or at partner companies. Eleanor, at 64, felt more useful and fulfilled than she had ever felt at 30. Caleb, at 26, was considered one of the most promising lawyers in the city, but his greatest achievement was creating a business model that proved it was possible to do good and do well at the same time. "Mrs. Sterling," Caleb said one afternoon as they were reviewing the firm's numbers, "do you remember when you found me studying in the parking garage?" "As if it were yesterday," Eleanor replied. "I was so scared of being discovered that day," Caleb confessed. I thought you would kick me out and I'd lose my only study space. And I almost did, Eleanor admitted. If I had followed my first impulse, I would have called security. What made you change your mind? Eleanor thought for a moment. I think it was seeing you so focused, so dedicated, she said. There was something about your posture that reminded me of myself when I was young and dreamed of having my own business. You had the same hunger I had. You saved my life that day, Caleb said emotionally. No, Caleb, Eleanor gently corrected. You saved your own life with your determination. And in the process, you saved mine too, by reminding me who I really am. Caleb smiled. So it was a two-way street. The best things in life always are, Eleanor replied. That afternoon, as she watched the activity in the office, young lawyers helping people who would never have had access to justice, interns who had received scholarships from the program studying diligently, dedicated employees working for something greater than their salaries, Eleanor reflected on how a seemingly small decision can completely change the course of a life. If she hadn't gone down to the parking garage that early morning, if she hadn't given Caleb a chance, if she hadn't opened her heart to see beyond appearances, none of this would exist. But perhaps, she thought, it wasn't just a matter of chance. Perhaps it was a matter of being prepared to recognize the opportunities to make a difference when they appear. Caleb had taught her that it doesn't matter where a person was born or how many difficulties they faced. What matters is the strength of the dream and the willingness to fight for it. And that sometimes, all a person needs is someone who believes in their potential. Eleanor looked out the office window and saw a young pizza delivery guy reading a book while waiting for the next order. For a moment, she thought of Caleb studying in the parking garage years ago. Caleb, she called. Yes, Miss Eleanor? Shall we go downstairs for coffee? She suggested. I want to get a closer look at that young man reading out on the street. Caleb smiled, understanding immediately. Do you think he might be our next scholarship recipient? I don't know, Eleanor replied. But it's worth finding out. They went down together, two people who had learned that life's greatest miracles happen when we decide to see potential where others see only problems. The end. So, what did you think of this touching story? Share in the comments which part moved you the most, and if you know someone who, like Caleb, is fighting to achieve their dreams. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will move and inspire you.